Hello, I'm Georgie Granger and I'm a consultant at PSE Consulting, a London-based specialist payments consultancy. Today we are diving into part one of a two-part Halloween series, so I'd like to welcome you to today's topic, which is Nightmare on Acquiring Street. Our chairman, Peter Jones, recently released an article outlining the perils faced by traditional acquirers in recent years. And if you haven't had the chance to read it, Peter has kindly joined me today to unpack those key themes explored in that article. So to kick off, I'm going to pass over to Peter to give us an overview as to why this particular topic is haunting many people in the payments industry, whilst I'm sure at the same time thrilling others. So, Peter.
Yes, it's a bit of a difficult time, for many of the captains of industry. And we can't speculate how they feel when they wake up in the morning, but many of us believe they're certainly suffering from more than just Halloween nightmares. And this is all to do with the fact that their business is under terrific attack from the new technology entrants. Many are seeing revenues and margins declining. Some of their largest merchants are migrating to new competitors. These small merchant SMB portfolios are draining. So it's very worrying indeed for many of them. And, lots of these guys have seen a future which would maybe see them rising to possibly to the board or the executive management of their traditional banking companies, and then a nice quiet retirement, perhaps even earlier than the age of 60. But an awful lot of these ambitious visions are beginning to disappear. So it's more than a nightmare. It's how can they hold on and solve their problems. Some of the difficulties relate to the way in which those traditional acquirers have underestimated the impact of the new entrants technology-driven model. That's probably the key driver for their nightmares. But also the investors are pressuring them to show better returns. Very often when they're putting up business cases to improve and expand their acquiring businesses, the executive management are unable to accept them. So what they're finding themselves, the worrying issue for the captains of traditional acquirer businesses is that their operations are in a dangerous downward spiral.
Okay. So, how are the traditional players responding to these challenges and to this change in the landscape?
Well, it sort of goes back quite a long way, really, and their response reflects, in a way, let's say, an underestimation of the effectiveness of what we would call the gateway acquirers, people like Adyen and Checkout and Cashflows as a smaller player. Those organizations have really worked hard at building a truly effective and efficient single platform solution, which originally was for e-commerce, and increasingly now it's for omnichannel with face-to-face. And they're able to offer a proposition to some of the largest merchants, which is highly compelling. Not only is it very often more competitively priced, but more importantly, from a technological point of view, it's very smooth, it's end-to-end, and features like terminal provision, and a complete sort of end-to-end back-end reporting facility right the way along the line. They're offering something that has a distinct advantage over the traditional gateway providers. One of the difficulties that they've got is that their gateways, when they're in place, aren't owned by them. A few have bought gateways, but most of them have an arrangement whereby their front ends are provided by third parties. They have traditional analog type front-end processors, ACI base 24 and similar, that they use to process. And that mixture looks very old-fashioned compared with the offerings of the gateway acquirers. Some of the actions they're taking is to reduce their prices to prevent switching, but it's causing their performance to be depressed. Revenues have plateaued and profits stagnated. A few have bought gateway processors as a front end, but many are realizing that their future is limited. Some are considering carving out their merchant businesses. Some are seeking JVs and technology partnerships to share assets and costs with other players. And even some are considering exit and selling their portfolio. So for the traditional acquirers owned by banks, it's a really difficult time. That's not to say they're yet in a desperate position, but they're having to think radically and consider very radical change.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as you say, a lot to consider for those traditional acquirers. And obviously, with the amount of change, and nobody has a crystal ball to see exactly what the future will hold, Peter. But in your opinion, what's next for those players?
Well, in the market, two buyers particularly have been aggressively buying up pieces of traditional merchant bank-owned portfolios. Worldline and Nexi. Prices have been falling, of course, when businesses aren't doing well. So they've been picking off selected portfolios across the EU in the last 18 months. And they are sort of optimistically betting on their capabilities as big international players to turn around the old model of these traditional acquirers. But of course, the difficulty is that that's going to involve investment, it's going to involve change. So they're taking a bit of a risk. And in the end, to actually build a model that will match the gateway acquirers, the likes of Adyen particularly, it's going to involve more than just investment. It's almost having to reinvent the platform. So this is an extremely difficult thing for strategic buyers to achieve. Now, on the other hand, we've got private equity who have been very active, as is well known, in buying up, acquiring operations over the last 10 or 15 years. They appear to be sitting on their hands at the moment. They're not quite sure whether they should buy the traditional ones. Many know that they haven't got the skills and expertise to enable traditional change. But when they look at the gateway acquirers, they find their prices are extremely expensive. And as those gateway acquirers are now getting into profit, the multiples that they have to pay to buy them. In addition, they've got borrowing costs, which are a major constraint. So there we have it. We have a group of traditional acquirers with a worryingly declining business. Some of them are being picked off by strategic buyers, but who knows whether those strategic buyers can fix those businesses. Private equity appears to be saying, we're not interested in buying the traditional acquirers. We'd like to buy some of the gateway acquirers, but they're not sure they've got the money or they can raise the revenues and borrowing to achieve it. So overall, everyone is in a little bit of a fix. And the precise outcome, I think, will be determined over the next year. I think as the results come in, as the traditional acquirers show poor returns, I think we're going to see a shakeout in the market. And probably by next Halloween, either the captains of acquiring businesses' problems will be over, or some of them are going to be having even worse nightmares.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it, and certainly something to watch closely over the next year or so, as you say. Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you everyone for taking the time to listen today. I hope it's been interesting. And don't forget, this is only part 1 of the series. So if you haven't had enough frights, join my colleagues Steph and Tom, where they will be discussing the digital euro, a ghost story. So thanks again, and we wish you all the best for a very enjoyable Halloween.
Thank you.